It is a popular topic. I get a lot of questions about it, which is my scanning, but what do you do when you get the scan results? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to explain how I like to sift my scans, and hopefully it'll give you some pointers on how to sift your scans. I'm, of course, going to be using my indicators, so you can keep that in mind. I, of course, think that's the best way to make your picks and to scan is to use the price momentum oscillator, the PMO. So I will be using that, and you'll get a chance to see that as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be doing a lot more looks at the process. So I'm just going to go through some of the basics first, and then we'll go and watch it in action. So the first thing I would say is you need to create a CandleGlance chart style. It's kind of the number one thing, because to me, if you're going to sift your scans, when you have 45 to 80 results, and personally, I don't want to go through each chart. I want to be able to see everything just enough and be able to delete it. So you can do the 10 per page, but again, that's still too much information for me at once. I like to use my CandleGlance. So I set up my CandleGlance the way that I want it in terms of what moving averages are there, what it looks like. I've got the PMO on it. I'll go through that really quickly when we get there. But I think that's very important so that you can see what you need to see. I recommend that you create a scan dump chart list, or you can name it whatever you want, but make it a transient list that you can drop your scans in, and you can sort in there. And then once you get the ones you want, then you can move that into a more permanent watch list or other chart list. But I think it's really helpful, and I learned this from Greg Schnell, so I'm going to give him kudos to have this. It saves so much time, and it's a lot of times it's save to a new chart list is what people do, and then you end up with 50 chart lists of scan results you've had over the past 5 days. So I recommend that transient chart list. Be sure before you even start, understand what you're looking for based on your scan. I know that sounds kind of silly, and most people would keep that in mind, but time frame could make a difference. The settings of your momentum oscillators can make a difference. You want to know really what you're looking for, and I'll go through my scan briefly, but to give you an idea. And again, so you need to know what kind of results you're gonna get just based on the scan that you have. And then you really, it's important, I think, to know how to manipulate it, because some days you might get 200 scan results and you want to pare those down, or maybe you only get 10 and you want to widen the universe and manipulate the scan so you get more results. So I think it's important to understand how to manipulate the scans as well, so that you get the kind of results you want. You want to have enough to look at to go through. And then finally, I think, of course, before you even hit the run scan button, you need to know what your market environment is. So in a big picture sense, do you have a bull or bear bias? What does that mean for sector rotation? For example, today when I ran my Monday setup scan, I ended up with mostly REITs that came in, and bonds. And that tells me that we're in a market with kind of a bearish bias. There's some uncertainty going on there. So I should understand that when I get these results, number one, what it means, and number two, what I want to do with those based on the big picture. Does it make sense to go into a defensive sector just because my scan came out? Or do I want to you need to look at the market in general? Because if it looks like you're getting ready for a nice bull run, a great rally to the upside, you may not want to be in a utility or in a REIT. It's just, or a bond fund for that matter. All right, so what do we look for when we're going through the scans? I look for, first of all, like I said, we adjust it to make sure we get the kind of results we want. I look for good PMO configurations. I think it's important to see very quickly what support and resistance levels are. I want to know what the moving average configuration is. Is the 20 rising? Is the 50 rising, but the 20 is moving, down. What does that tell me as far as support and resistance as well? You can use moving averages for that. And then look for prominent chart patterns. Look for those chart patterns that will come to your attention in a CandleGlance chart. I think that's one of the best parts of CandleGlance. I can immediately see chart patterns. It's really easy for me to pick those out. So what is a good PMO configuration? We're supposed to look for that, right? I would say, first of all, I want it to be oversold. So either turning up in that very bottom of the range, or I want it to be just above the zero line, just getting into that strength of momentum, or turning up just above the zero line. That tells me you've got a stock that's been oscillating above the zero line with the PMO, and that implies internal strength. So if you find one that's turning up just above the zero line and it's had this really nice oscillation above that line, those are usually good configurations to look at. Looking for PMOs that are turning up. I will accept a moving or flat PMO if I'm looking at a nice rising trend, because the PMO will flatten out if acceleration doesn't change. So if you're on a very nice pathway to the upside, and you'll usually see that with some of those bond funds, they just move very, very slowly to the upside. That means you're going to get a flat PMO because that acceleration isn't changing. So I will accept a PMO that is moving flat if it's with a rising trend and not a declining trend, of course. We want to have plenty of overhead travel territory. So just because you've got this PMO that looks great and it's turning up, if it's near the top of its range, that means that stock is overbought and momentum is now overbought, and it is turning up, but you might be time for that pullback. So I prefer to have plenty of room for the PMO to travel to the upside. Doesn't mean that if you picked one that's overbought and rising, that it's not going to continue to rise. But I want to have it at the beginning of the move, or maybe just going into that move to the upside. I like to look for bullish confirmations or positive divergences with the PMO, but I don't put as much emphasis on divergences with the PMO. It's just a personal preference. You can do it. I just find that certain divergences on the PMO don't always mean what you think they should mean. I think confirmations, honestly, are a little bit more positive at this point, rather than looking for divergences. I want to see rising bottoms on the PMO and rising bottoms on price. Support and resistance level. I think most of us can identify resistance and support lines, but where is the highest price for the period that you're looking at on your CandleGlance? Where is the support level? Is price near that? Is it near resistance? Well, if it's near resistance, I still might want to put it on a watch list if the PMO is rising and looking good. Look for trading ranges and prices at the bottom of trading ranges, or those rising trends. And those will also help you with determining where your support and resistance levels are. Moving average support or resistance, of course, you can use those as well to determine your support and resistance levels. But it's important, and you can see it on a CandleGlance, because I'm going to run through it and you'll see that you can see these things. Prominent chart patterns, I figured I would just give you the list of some of the most popular bullish chart patterns. Of course, if you're looking for a shorting opportunity, you're not going to want to see these patterns. But typically we're looking not to short, we're looking to buy. So these are the bullish chart patterns I recommend looking for. The ascending triangle today, as I ran through our Monday setups with all those REITs showing up, almost every one of them had an ascending triangle bullish formation. So again, told me to concentrate in that area. Double bottom, triple bottoms, those are pretty obvious, but look for those after a declining trend. These are not going to be as useful to you if you got a rising trend and then you get the double bottom. It's a reversal pattern, so you need to come down into either the triple bottom or go down into that double bottom. reverse head and shoulders. And again, same thing, best to look for reverse head and shoulders off of a decline. They are reversal patterns. Not to say they don't work if you look at them the other way, to each his own. Declining wedge, that's also a positive pattern. I think right now, we've been looking at a lot of rising wedges in the major markets, and that's a bearish pattern. Obviously, declining wedges are the ones you want to look for the bullish side of things. All right, and let's go through the steps, and then we're just going to go right on over to the website, and I'm going to run through the steps. We'll go one by one here. So, of course, once you've got all of your stuff set up, your CandleGlance and all of that, you understand your scan, obviously, then it's time to run it. I save it, like I said, to a scan dump or a transient chart list. I then view it in CandleGlance, and remember, I've already set up my CandleGlance to be what I want to see all of my indicators and moving averages. I want to see it in my chart format, not in the default chart format. So I created a CandleGlance. Once you're there, there's a little trash can button, and if it just doesn't appeal to you for any reason, just hit the trash can and just keep going. Sometimes maybe you'll see one, you'll go, oh, I like that. I don't need to, I'm just going to write that down because I know I'm going to want it. But you can also go through and just click, 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 delete the ones you don't like, and then that'll help you narrow it down. And then once you have the ones you want, like today when I came up with my Monday setups, I saved them into my Monday setups chart list. So sounds easy enough, right? Let's go and look at how this all will work in real time. All right, so number one, we need to create a CandleGlance chart style. All right, let's just pull up, we'll pull up Avalon Bay. All right, so I need to have a good CandleGlance chart style. I don't want to use the default. So I am going to go down here and I'm going to cheat a little bit because I already have set up my chart styles. But I have a couple of different CandleGlances. My primary CandleGlance looks like this. It is a fill the chart 2-bar extra on the end. This is the setup. It gives me 20, 50, 200-day moving averages, and it gives me the PMO on the bottom. And I just did the color because it tells me that it's my CandleGlance and not anybody else's. So I've set it up the way I want it. And then I should save that to be CandleGlance. And there it is. So it's saved as CandleGlance. Like I said, I usually have a couple here. I like to have an intraday one or a shorter term one, like you can see there. But today we're going to use my regular one, 20, 50, 200, and there's the PMO. So I have my CandleGlance set up now. Next thing is I want to have that transient chart list set up, which I already do right there. Okay, next thing I need to know is understanding my scan. So let's go ahead and we'll go to the scan. And I have quite a few, but I did just recently write in Chart Watchers, not this last weekend, but the weekend before. I wrote about my favorite scan right now. So I'm going to use that one, but I have a bunch of other ones. I have everything from a scan for shorts. I've got the ones for my trend models. I've come up with a few, for our segments on Market Watchers Live. But this is the new one that I'm really kind of liking right now. I think that's the one. Edit. And make sure that's the right one. Yes. All right, so if you're interested in my scans or this recent one, if you do a search generally on Erin and scan in quotation, you should come up with you're going to end up go to the blog articles and, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, let's just do it this way, Erin Swenlin, and then we'll do scan. There we go. So here's that article I just wrote. There's the technical scans that I do a lot of times on our show. You can go back and find the show I did it for and watch it. And I just have, you know, a bunch of different scanning in there. So enjoy that. But let's go back to what we were doing. All right, here's that new scan that I like. So got to understand what I'm scanning for. I'm using, in this case, oh, that's an example. Where's the one? That's the one. Okay, so I'm looking for a stock in the US. That's my daily volume that I want. So I'm looking for something with a average volume above 100,000. I want to keep those penny stocks out, so I have it a close above $10. And I have a PMO that's rising for 3 days right here. This is where I usually can expand my results. I can just take out some of these comments. I can say, well, rather than having risen for 3 days, I'll accept it's been rising for 2 days, and that will open up your scan. This tells me I want the 20 above the 50, above the 200, so I want a positive setup of the EMAs. This would be another place where I could expand my results by commenting out, for example, the 50-day being above the 200-day. I can just take that out. And then I'm looking for a scooter between 70 and 80. I want one that's on the rise, that's in that mid-range, but has room to become even stronger. So let's go ahead and we'll run this. And I think I ended up with like 40 something results when I ran it this morning. Okay, we actually had a few more. So I'm going to replace a chart list. And let me show you this first. So if you store it in a new chart list, that's when you end up with chart list after chart list after chart list every time you do a scan. So that's why I like to replace the results that way. So do this, and we're going to put it in the scan dump right there. And now I want to view this in, ta-da, CandleGlance. And there it is. That's my setup that I have for my CandleGlance. So I get to see the PMO, I get to see the 20, 50, and 200-day EMAs. So now it's time to start paring things down. Okay, so I'm going to look first for PMOs that don't look interesting to me because they're a little too high in their range. Okay, so for example, this one's near the top of the range, so I don't want that one. So I'm just going to take that out. This one's on a nice ride, but again, the PMO is getting overbought. So while this still might be a good choice, I want something that hasn't been on the run for so long. I'm going to look for something better. Let's see, those look pretty good. That looks like the PMO's trying to top right now, so I'm going to take that one out. Let's see, that looks good. Those are all still looking good. That's overbought and looks like it's rounding out, so I'm going to take that one out. That looks okay. That's flat, but we're on a nice rise. I happen to know, I'm pretty sure that's a bond fund, so that's going to be a slow mover, so maybe I won't want it, but for now I'm just going to leave it. That PMO looks like it might be topping, so we'll take that out. And then next, so we'll see how far we've gotten this pared down just by looking at PMOs. That looks good. That does look like it's decelerating. I'm going to take that out. That looks good. That looks good. That one is decelerating and near the top of a range. That one's been flat. It's getting near overhead resistance, so I'm going to just take that one out at this point. That looks like one of those bond funds that moves too slow. That looks like a good PMO. I can accept that one and that one. Let's see, that one looks like it's decelerating and turning down, so I don't want that one. That looks like it's moving, turning into a, yeah, it's flattening out. It may even top below the signal line, so we'll take that one out too. All right, so now we're down to how many? We started with 49, and now, well, it's not telling me exactly, but I know we're at quite a bit less. So that was one of the things we look for. What's the next thing I look for would be support and resistance levels. So let's see where price is in regards to that. So this one is sitting right on it. It needs to burst above it. I would keep this one because the PMO is turning up just above the zero line. And even though it's at overhead resistance, it's really set up for the breakout. So I would leave this one in based on support and resistance. This one has moved itself above overhead resistance, broke out, coming back and testing. I like it. This one looks like, as far as support and resistance goes, it's hitting some resistance now, but it has gotten above previous overhead resistance. I'll leave it. This one got near overhead resistance and has turned down. That actually looks like a rising wedge, which I happen to know is a bearish pattern. So I'm going to take that one out. And this one's moving sideways. It's kind of in between on a trading range. If it were at the bottom of the trading range, I might take it. That's a nice breakout above resistance, nice little breakout. Again, this looks like a slow mover bond fund. I'm going to take that one out. Take that there too. Chubb, kind of near the top of the range. I sort of missed out on that as far as the PMO, so I'm going to take that out just based on that. This is reaching overhead resistance. I might leave this one just for the watch list, but with it reaching overhead resistance, I'll keep it because I like the PMO turning up above 0, and I think there's a good chance we might get that breakout. If I happen to look at this one, there we go, declining tops and a breakout. Very nice. Getting ready to hit this, what could be a confirmation on a kind of a messy double bottom. So that's good. And look at the PMO is rising. So we're getting these down. That looks like a bond fund. I don't want it. So you can just keep going through. That was support and resistance. Let's see a little bit more here. The next thing I usually look for is that moving average configuration and chart patterns. So we already know that the EMAs are going to be configured well because of the way I did my scan. So that's why it's important to understand your scan. So I already know that these EMAs are going to be set up nicely, but it's good to look at where price is and what the EMAs are doing. For example, HTA just had a 20-50 day positive crossover. It's breaking out. This actually was one of my Monday setup picks. It had the double bottom here, and it's moved above that confirmation line and broken out. So I think HTA looks good just based on that. So I could either write that down and then add it to a chart list, or I could just keep moving down, keep deleting. So this looks like that's a spider fund. I'm going to just take that out. These I know are bond funds, so I'm going to leave those out. In fact, if we just go to edit the list, let's see, there's a bond fund. I know that I don't want that limited liability partnership, not interested. Bond. And there's another one. And there's one. So I'm going to take those out. And where are we now? We're down to 23. And we've done this in what, 10 minutes? Maybe. This is the way you can quickly do this. It's just, I can't recommend enough using CandleGlance. I just think that it is absolutely the best way to see all of your stocks and quickly on a scan find what looks the best. So we were looking for chart patterns, and we're looking at 20-50 day crossovers. So there's that one. This one, the 20 could be getting ready to cross below the 50, which I'm not very happy about. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Like I said, delete freely. Why not? There's all these other choices. There's no point in continuing that. So here's a chart pattern that looks like a ascending triangle there, flat top, rising bottoms. The expectation is a breakout to the top, so I think that still looks pretty good. 20-50 day EMA positive crossover. You can see all of these REITs really looking good right now. And you can just keep going through there. So we've gotten it down pretty far. Now, how do I pick my Monday setups when I still have this many? I look for the PMO buy signals and a 20 moving up like we see here. The ones I ended up picking today, let's see if they're still in here. They should be. Avalon Bay was one of them. Again, nice ascending triangle with the breakout. And then when you look at the chart even, you can see that it's pulling back toward that breakout point. So really nice entry even right here. And what else did I end up picking? EQR, and that's still here. Another ascending triangle, flat top. Hasn't quite managed to break out above that overhead resistance, but certainly worth a watch with the PMO buy signal just coming in. LTC, did I get rid of that? No. Good to know. When I follow this, it does go. There's another ascending triangle, flat top, rising bottoms, and a breakout. So another good looking chart right there. Merck was another one, and that's still in here. That's a flag formation. Looks like a flag breakout and continuing up. Nice PMO moving into the positive zone. There's a 2050 positive crossover. And then I think the other one, yep, AT&T, flag formation. Not my favorite one of the group, but those were the ones I ended up picking for my Monday setups. So really that is the main thing I wanted to talk to you about as far as sifting scans go. I hope this is helpful to you on your sifting scans, but really I think critical at this point is get your CandleGlance set up, get a scan dump set up, and that way you can have that scan ready to go. Copy some of my scans if you don't know where to start. Another great place to start are the predefined scans. And I'll go take us to that on the home page here. Predefined scans. This is an excellent place to go to either build a scan or just use one of these scans. You can even look based on the part in the market. So you can set that up, just hit that and you're going to get the results. And then up here in the corner, you can edit it. And this is how you can just borrow, the code. So if you want to use this code, but match it up with maybe some of your other scans, like I have my general PMO scan, you can copy paste and there you go. Now you've created your own scan, maybe even a hybrid one, just based on what scans we already have in there. So again, that concludes it. I hope this was helpful for you, and I'm feeling pretty good about that one. Tom, do you ever use the CandleGlance?
Well, I use it for the market update.
That's true.
Yep, every day on the show. Personally, I usually use the summary. I have a lot of my own personal, my stocks in a chart list, and so I normally have so many. And I normally will zero in based on whether they're up or down for the day. So I like to use the summary page, which you can then sort. And so I use the sort function based on percentage change, and I can quickly find which ones in my list are performing well that day, which ones are down. A lot of times I'll go to the ones that are down looking for a nice entry. So I actually tend to buy stocks more when they're pulling back than when they're moving up. So I'd rather get them on a pullback than chasing them on the way up.
Sure.
Also.
And then, yeah, you can create your, groups. There's my sector spiders. There's lots of different things in here. That looks like an old one, but there you go. There's your sectors and the scooter. You can do all of that, use your search table. But yeah, you're very familiar with your chart list. I mean, you look at those all the time.
Yep.
And you can scan on those still too. And then you're familiar with the charts because they're in your chart list.
That is true. I mean, I keep probably anywhere from 200 to 250, maybe even 300 stocks in there at one time. You keep up to 500 in a chart list, in one chart list. So yeah, I mean, being able to keep the stocks that I like to trade in one list and then either scan against it or use, like you're showing on your screen right there, that summary page. And then I just click on that percentage change column. Mm-hmm. And so if you got 500 stocks or 300 stocks, you can quickly, just by clicking that one button, all the ones that are performing really strongly that day come up to the top, and you click on it again, and then it highlights the ones that are weak, just like that. So quickly you can see which stocks within your watch list are performing well, which ones are not. And for me, that's invaluable to quickly zero in on potential trades.
Yep. And here's that results of what we just went over in the example. And look at healthcare. The majority, 2/3 or more, are in the defensive sectors right here. So I think that's very interesting. Whenever my scans start coming up with defensive groups, that's something to keep in mind. And again, though, I know for me, I am a momentum trader in that I like to already see that positive momentum. So we know that the market has been a little bit touchy. lately. So it shouldn't be a complete surprise to get defensive sectors.